Hello, everyone. My name is Ambassador Bob Blake, and I am very happy to be joining you today from Washington, D.C. First, let me extend my warm greetings to all of those participating in this event from Maharashtra, from throughout India, and indeed from around the world. I want to particularly thank the Observer Research Foundation for inviting me to speak at the Colaba Conversations and for focusing on the important topic of climate change. I've had the pleasure over the years of participating in several ORF conferences and gatherings, and it's impressive to see how much the organization has grown. Several months ago, Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, called and asked me to join his team and focus on deepening our climate change cooperation with India. As a retired diplomat, I could hardly tell a former Secretary of State no. And so, indeed, I'm thrilled to be back working on these critical issues in a country where I have long experience. The last several years, cooperation between India and the United States has taken off in a number of areas. Two-way trade and investment are up. We are tackling global and Indo-Pacific issues through the Quad dialogue. And despite setbacks from COVID-19, our educational and cultural links remain as strong as ever. However, no area of cooperation is more important than our joint work to address the climate crisis. I know that many of you followed, and some of you even attended, the climate conference called the 26th Conference of the Parties, more commonly known as COP26, which took place in the first 2 weeks of November in Glasgow, Scotland. At COP26, the Indian government made a number of historic pledges. Prime Minister Modi committed India to achieve net zero emissions by 2070, reduce total carbon emissions by 1 billion tons by 2030, to reduce the carbon intensity of India's economy by 45% by 2030, to increase non-fossil fuel energy capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030, and to meet half of all energy requirements from renewable sources by 2030. These pledges are forward-leaning, and we strongly encourage the government of India to enshrine them in an enhanced nationally determined contribution as a means of further formalizing its bold climate ambitions. In fact, underscoring the seriousness of the pledges made by Prime Minister Modi and others, COP26, Fatih Birol, the executive director of the International Energy Agency, has announced that all the climate pledges that were announced to date were met, we would be able to limit global warming to 1.8 degrees Celsius. So we're making progress in terms of ambition, but the hard work really begins now as governments, multilateral institutions, private companies, non-governmental organizations, and individuals work to implement and accelerate bold commitments made at Glasgow. In April, President Biden and Prime Minister Modi announced the U.S.-India Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 Partnership, our key framework agreement to jointly tackle the climate crisis. The first of the two main tracks of this partnership is the U.S.-India Strategic Clean Energy Partnership, which is co-led by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Indian Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. This dialogue is focused on the research and deployment of clean energy technologies. The second main track is the Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue, which John Kerry, Indian Minister of Environment Bhupender Yadav, jointly launched in New Delhi in September. The CAFMID, as we call it, has four separate pillars: climate action, finance mobilization, adaptation and resilience, and forestry. We have been working closely with our Indian counterparts to begin implementing the CAFMID to help transform the commitments made at Glasgow into reality. As we work towards implementing these partnerships and dialogues, there's one fact that we will never forget. India is a huge country with nearly 1.4 billion human beings. And many of your most populous states, such as Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra, are themselves the size of large countries. In the focus of the Colaba conversation at the subnational level, I want to underscore our own engagement at the state and local levels. We have a saying in the United States that all politics is local, and that statement holds equally true in India. We realize that without local grassroots implementation, our grandest climate ambitions are nothing but words on paper. To give you an idea of the sorts of on the ground efforts that we're engaged in, I want to provide you with just a few examples of the US government's climate work in India. US Agency for International Development is supporting mitigation and adaptation programs, including by funding disaster resilient infrastructure and reforestation schemes. Colleagues from the State Department's Energy Bureau are helping several Indian states to reform their electricity distribution companies and revise their regulatory landscapes to attract more investor capital. Development Finance Corporation, working to finalize a $500 million loan to a company that plans to produce solar modules in southern India. Linking all of these efforts, I want to emphasize the importance of a just transition. Change is always hard, and many of the burdens of climate change are poised to come down on those least able to bear them. Take an example from the India context. Millions of Indians, especially in eastern states, derive their incomes from the coal sector. Part of our work then will be helping to generate alternative livelihoods as well as India transitions to cleaner energy, to ensure that no Indian worker is left behind. In short, we know that the task before us is a monumental one, but India has overcome many equally daunting challenges before. And we here in the United States look forward to supporting your country as it reduces its carbon emissions and adapts its infrastructure to the world of tomorrow. So again, I want to thank ORF so much for this opportunity to speak with you today. And I look forward to working with all of you on this important task that we have before us. Thank you so much.